Level 1. EOD trainee. You are 19 years old. Nobody drafted you. You walked into a recruiting office in Dayton, Ohio on a Thursday afternoon and told the sergeant behind the desk you wanted EOD. He looked at you for a moment the way people look at a statement that is technically possible but statistically unlikely. Then he pulled out a form. Your ASVAB scores were high enough. Your physical was clean. Your background check came back clear. 3 months later, you were at Fort Jackson for basic, and 9 months after that you were at Eglin Air Force Base, Florida, for the Naval School Explosive Ordnance Disposal. 38 weeks. The longest technical pipeline in the United States military. The school does not ease you in. Week 1 is physics, chemistry, and mathematics at a level that removes anyone who arrived thinking the job was mostly about being brave. Bravery is not the curriculum. Understanding what you are walking toward is the curriculum, because a technician who does not understand the initiation system of a device, the explosive train, the output, and the conditions under which it will function as designed, is not a brave person walking downrange. He is an uninformed one. The distinction matters entirely. You learn munitions identification. Bomb components, artillery shells, naval mines, aircraft-delivered ordnance from 6 decades of American conflict, and the improvised variants that have replaced them in the theaters you will be working. You learn render-safe procedures, the specific sequence of actions that defeats an explosive device without initiating it, which requires understanding the device well enough to know which action defeats it and which action sets it off. These are not the same action, and they are sometimes close enough together that the difference is in the details. The bomb suit weighs 80 pounds. Ceramic plates, Kevlar ballistic panels, a polycarbonate face shield, a cooling system that does not work as well as the specifications suggest. The first time you put it on in a training environment and walk across a parking lot in the Florida heat, you understand that the suit is not protection in the conventional sense. At contact distance with a significant device, the suit is the difference between a closed casket and something else. This is not a morbid observation. It is a calibration. You either accept it or you find a different job. Most people in your class accept it. Your primary instructor is Staff Sergeant Mercer. 12 years in EOD for deployments, the specific quality of deliberateness that comes from having operated in environments where moving too fast is the same as moving wrong. He does not explain things by telling you what to think. He constructs the situation and watches what your hands do and where your eyes go. After a training render safe on a simulated pressure plate IED, he stood beside you for 30 seconds without speaking. Then, you identified the initiation system correctly and went to the firing circuit first. That was right. He walked to the next student. You did not know until later how many students he did not say that to. Your class graduation roster reads, Carter, N. EOD Technician, Qualified. Assigned 22nd EOD Battalion, Fort Bragg, North Carolina. There is no ceremony specific to EOD graduation beyond the badge. The badge is called the Crab, a ball and claw design that has been the EOD insignia since 1957. You pin it on in a room with 11 other people who have spent 38 weeks learning the same things you learned, and then you report to your unit. Your first real device is not in a combat zone. It is a Korean War-era 105mm artillery round uncovered during a construction project outside Fayetteville, 7 months after you arrive at Bragg. The site is cordoned. Civilians have been evacuated 200 meters in every direction. Your team sergeant briefs the situation. You suit up. You walk to it. The distance from the cordon to the device is 60 meters. You have walked longer distances thousands of times. These 60 meters are different in a way that the training prepared you for technically and did not prepare you for physically, because training environments carry the understanding that the consequence of error is a remediation, and this one does not. The round is half exposed, nose down, orientation consistent with a stable condition. You read the markings. You assess the fuse type. You make the determination. You call the procedure to your team over the radio. You execute it. 3 minutes and 40 seconds. Controlled detonation. Done. You walk back to the cordon. Mercer, who has come out to observe, is leaning against the MRAP. He does not say anything. He nods once. You remove the helmet. The air is cold in a way that feels significant and is probably not. At 19, the first lesson is not about courage. It is about method. Courage without method is just proximity to something dangerous. Method is what makes proximity survivable. Every step of the render safe procedure exists because someone worked out the sequence that is most likely to produce the correct outcome. You follow the sequence. You do not improvise. Improvisation is for the next level. Level 2. Staff Sergeant. EOD Team Leader. You are 26 years old. This is your third deployment to Afghanistan. Kandahar Province. The IED threat here is pressure plate, homemade explosive, buried in the road surface at a depth that defeats ground-penetrating radar at vehicle speed. The devices are not sophisticated in their construction. They are sophisticated in their placement, chosen by people who understand traffic patterns, soil composition, culvert geometry, and the behavioral patterns of the units working this area. The device does not need to be complex. It needs to be where you are not expecting it. You lead a 3-person team. You are 26. Your junior technicians are 22 and 23. They are technically qualified and operationally inexperienced in the specific way that qualification and experience are different things. Your job is to close that gap without the gap getting any of you killed in the process. The call comes at 0640. A route clearance patrol has identified a suspect device 4 kilometers north of the FOB. Pressure plate indicator, disturbed soil, command wire partially exposed at the road edge. Your team mounts up. 22 minutes to the site. On the way you review what you know and what you do not know, which is the device type and size and what, if anything, it is connected to beyond the visible wire. Your senior NCO before this deployment was Master Sergeant Holt. 19 years in EOD, 6 deployments, the unhurried manner of someone who has made the decision to walk to a device enough times that the decision itself no longer occupies the same cognitive space it occupied the first time. He told you one thing before you left Bragg. The wire you can see is never the only wire. You carry this as a physical fact, not a caution. You suit up at 200 meters from the device. The walk is 83 meters. You have made this walk in varying distances and varying threat environments, 61 times over 2.5 deployments. It does not feel routine. It feels familiar, which is different. Familiar means you know where to put your attention. Routine means you have stopped paying the full amount of it, and that is when the environment collects what you owe. The device is a pressure plate, 2-liter jug of homemade explosive, initiator buried 4 centimeters below the plate. The command wire runs into a culvert to the east and continues for 30 meters to a firing position that is currently unoccupied. Somebody was here within the last 6 hours. You know this from the soil at the firing position. You make the assessment. You call the procedure. You execute it. The disruption shot fires. The device does not initiate. You conduct the post-blast, confirm render safe, collect components for exploitation. Your team bags the wire, the plate components, the jug remnants. The intelligence package goes to Gieto that evening. 3 weeks later, you receive a report that the component sourcing traces to a network your battalion has been working for 4 months. The device you walked to contributed 6 lines to a targeting package that, 6 weeks after that, produces an actionable result. You do not attend the result. You are on your next call. 61 devices over 2.5 deployments becomes 88 by the time you redeploy. You do not count them as they happen. You only know the number because the after-action record exists. The number itself means less than the specific ones you remember, which are the ones where something was different from what the initial assessment indicated, and the difference mattered and you caught it. There were 4 of those. You remember all 4 precisely. At 26, the lesson is about the decision architecture. The render safe procedure tells you what to do with a device you have identified correctly. It does not tell you what to do when your identification might be wrong. That decision belongs to you and to nobody else because you are the person in the suit, and at that distance, the radio is for reporting, not for asking. You have to have already decided. You have to have decided correctly before you arrived at the device, and the only thing that makes that possible is the quality of the assessment you ran before you suited up. The walk is the end of the decision, not the beginning. Before we go further, if you have made it this far, drop a comment right now. Which level would you have stopped at? Hit the like button. Subscribe. We upload every single day. Level 3, Master Sergeant. Senior EOD Technician. You are 33 years old. You have walked to 141 devices over 4 deployments. You know this number because the record exists, not because you have been counting. The number is not the thing. The thing is that you are now the person responsible for the technicians who walk to the next 141. This is the adjustment nobody prepares you for. Not the transition from doing to overseeing, which is described in every leadership manual in the United States Army. The specific adjustment of watching a 23-year-old technician suit up and begin the walk to a device that you have assessed, and understanding that your assessment is the foundation his safety is built on, and sitting with what it costs if your assessment is incomplete. You are stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, with a forward element deploying to Iraq. The IED threat environment here is different from Afghanistan. Vehicle-borne devices, larger yields, secondary devices placed to target the response team. The complexity of the threat has increased in the years since your first deployment. The people building these devices have had time to study what has worked and what has not, and the ones who survived that study are building the current generation. You are building the current generation of technicians at the same time. Both populations are learning from the same history. Your junior technician is Specialist Ramos. 22, qualified 8 months ago. First deployment. He has the quality of attention you look for, the habit of reading a scene from the outside before moving toward it, the patience to gather information before forming a conclusion. He is going to be good at this. He is not good at it yet. On a Tuesday in November, Ramos conducts the initial assessment on a suspect VBIED, a parked vehicle flagged by a local national informant outside a market. He comes back to the cordon and briefs the assessment. The vehicle's threat indicators are consistent with a passive device, no visible command wire, no antenna, no visible pressure component at the doors. He recommends a manual approach for secondary confirmation before calling the disruption platform. You listen to the entire brief. Then, the informant flagged it at 0900. It is now 1340. Why is the vehicle still here 4 hours after it was flagged? Ramos is quiet for 3 seconds. Because someone is waiting for a reason to initiate it. He looks at the vehicle. He revises the assessment. You call the robot. The robot confirms an antenna component behind the front wheel well. Remote-controlled initiation system. Manual approach would have brought Ramos within the kill radius of a device that was waiting for exactly that approach. You do not make an event of it. You do not pull him aside afterward for a formal counseling. You ask him one question in the debrief. What did the timeline tell you before the technical indicators told you anything? He gives you the correct answer. You nod. You move to the next item on the debrief. He does not make that category of error again. Holt called you 8 months ago. He has been retired for 2 years now. He asked one question. Are you teaching the timeline before the technical sequence? You told him yes. He said good. He hung up. For words. Sufficient. At 33, the lesson is about what you carry after 141 devices. Not the weight of the suit which your body adapted to years ago. The weight of every assessment that was correct, because a correct assessment on a device like the one Ramos walked to in November means someone went home that day who might not have. You do not know how many times that has been true across your career and the careers of the technicians you have trained. You will never know. That specific not knowing is something you learn to carry without putting it down, because putting it down means losing the thing that keeps the assessments careful. Level 4. Sergeant Major. Senior EOD Program Manager. You are 41 years old. 22 years. The number on your retirement paperwork. The number that will appear in a citation read by a general officer in a ceremony at Fort Lee, Virginia, 7 weeks from now. The number that contains 163 devices for deployments, 3 meritorious service medals, 2 junior technicians you trained who are now team leaders, 1 who is now a staff sergeant with his own first deployment underway in a country whose name is not in this account, and a number of other things that are in the record and a number of things that are not. You are now the senior enlisted advisor for the 52nd EOD Brigade. Your role is doctrine, training standards, and the institutional knowledge that exists in the gap between what the manual says and what the environment produces. You write the updates to the render safe procedures that come out of after-action reporting. You review the training pipeline at Eglin and identify the places where the curriculum does not yet reflect the current threat. You brief general officers on EOD readiness posture across the force. You do not walk to devices anymore. This is the adjustment, not retirement. The transition from the person who walks to the next device to the person who writes the procedure the next person follows. You have been making this transition for 3 years, and there is a part of it that is not complete and will not be. Not because you want to be back in the suit. Because the suit is where the work was fully real in a way that this room, with its PowerPoint briefings and acquisition timelines and doctrinal revision cycles, is not. You hold both. You carry the one to make the other better. Your sergeant major counterpart at the training battalion is an old colleague who came up through the same pipeline and who has spent the last 4 years watching the same class of 19-year-olds move through 38 weeks of school and emerge at the other end as technicians. He told you once, the ones who make it longest are never the ones who are unafraid. They are the ones who are afraid of the right things, afraid of a wrong assessment, afraid of missing the timeline, afraid of moving before the picture is complete. He is right. You have been afraid of those things for 22 years. That fear is the most productive thing you have ever carried. Eglin Air Force Base, Florida. October. You are visiting the school for a curriculum review. In the afternoon session, a class of trainees is running their first full-kit walk in the Florida heat. 80-pound suits. A training lane with a simulated pressure plate at 60 meters. You stand at the edge of the observation area and watch the first trainee suit up, run through the pre-approach check, and begin the walk. The walk is 60 meters. The trainee moves correctly, weight distributed, eyes tracking the lane, pace controlled. He reaches the device. He reads the indicators. He calls the procedure over the radio. He executes it. He walks back. The class roster on the table beside you reads, Training Class 2 to 24. Trainees listed alphabetically. 12 names. Number 7, Carter, Noah A. Trainee EOD School. You look at it for a moment. That name went on an order sheet at Fort Bragg 22 years ago. A 19-year-old who had never seen a real device, walking to a Korean War artillery round in a field outside Fayetteville with 60 meters of unfamiliar ground between him and what he had spent 38 weeks learning to approach. He did not know then what the next 22 years would ask of him. Nobody could have told him. The only way to know is to walk it. At 41, the understanding built across 22 years is this: the job is not about the bomb. The bomb is the condition. The job is about the method you bring to the condition, every time without exception, regardless of what the previous device was or how many devices preceded this one. The method does not get easier. It gets more precise. Precision applied consistently across 22 years is what the career actually is, underneath the number of devices and the deployments and the citations. It is what keeps the technician walking back. The trainee is pulling off his helmet at the cordon. His instructor says something you cannot hear at this distance. The trainee nods. He goes to the end of the line to wait for his next iteration. He does not know what is coming, because you walked every meter of it.